Reading journals. Some love them, some don't. Do they work? Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen. And today we're going to talk about reading journals and whether or not they actually do the job they are supposed to. So, for those who don't know what they are, at its basis, notebooks or digital logs, depending on if you use online or paper, where readers can track their thoughts, questions, reflections, and more while they are reading. So, this could be certain passages that you like, certain quotes that you like, or maybe if you want to go back later and maybe research something about a certain aspect. These are the kind of things you would use it for. Stuff like Goodreads, for instance, is a very popular online choice where not only you can list the books you've read and haven't, but you can also chat with others who have and basically write down your thoughts for others to read
Right.
and kind of discuss, the ideas.
Like an online book club kind of thing? I mean, it could be like a
I guess you could think of it that way. Yeah, you could think of it in a way of kind of having that discussion. So I know before we came on, you told me that you don't necessarily use it in that matter. You kind of prefer the notes
in the book,
in
but
the
I
book.
do.
Do you think though that it kind of do the same thing for you in the book versus in the notebook, or do you just do it
I
separately for your own personal?
yeah, I think the journal, like I do. I mean, I'll use a journal. I have a journal anyway. So in my journal, every so often, if something struck a chord, a quote, or something that I have to remember, I don't want to say I have to go back into the book, then I will write the quote down. And then I create an index page in my journal that
Okay.
identifies quotes so that every time I put something in, I can go into the index and say on page 3, there's a quote, on page 10, there's a quote. So all the quotes are identified, not what they are, but how to find them. So maybe I do use a journal, kind of, but
Okay. Well, this kind of actually goes with one of the benefits that they say. One of the key benefits they say that these things do is it encourages active engagement in reading. So active engagement to me basically means it keeps you focused on what you are
right.
trying to comprehend throughout the book. So something like keeping your quotes handy is a very important aspect, obviously, because whatever you do with them later will be for your choice, but it'll allow you to keep tabs on the portions of the story
Do
that
you use do you use a book journal?
I have not. I've seen them. Well, actually, I did that. I tried once. I never went back to continuously do it because I just lost my focus on it. But I can see how if you are used to using it regularly, it would be very helpful. I think for someone who maybe has never touched it, such as myself, jumping into doing
Right.
so is awkward only because it's not the norm for your reading experience. However, I do find myself once in a while going, oh, wait, I wish there was a way to put this passage down because it does resonate well. And that would be a time to maybe use a notepad or something
Right.
to keep tabs.
Right.
So many readers use this to actually improve their comprehension and memory. Writing down your thoughts reinforces your understanding. Kind of, what I learned in
Right.
school when your teacher says, okay, I want you to copy this down 15 times. That way, by the 15th time, you should understand what you're doing. And if not, write it down 15 more just to make sure. But like you said, it does help to recall certain points of the plot, certain character development, and of course, as you personally do, key quotes as well. But the question still stands, does it actually work? And it's kind of open ended. But really, if you're looking to retain the info, this might be a successful way to do so.
Right, and I mean, I'm looking at all the notes that you created on this, and it very specifically talks about the artistic bullet journaling, and that was actually what I was referring to. I didn't see that
Oh,
in here, but
okay,
you said
okay.
that when you write, and then you have index pages so that you can find your notes. Part of the problem and challenges with anything that you're writing in a journal is how do you find what you wrote?
Correct.
Right? That means you have to keep scanning these pages. And that to me is way too much effort. It's like, why bother writing it down? if you're writing it down to remember it, well, then how are you supposed to remember where you wrote it down? Literally, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're like me who uses the digital form, there's no place to write it down, so
Right.
you are kind of at the task of having to find a place to do it. But yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I think when you have websites like, for instance, Goodreads that kind of do it, it can help. But
Right.
it's also the other part of it is you have to remember to do it, which also is a problem for some as well. So it's not so
Right.
much of doing it, but it's okay, are you going to remember to do it every single time?
Right.
If you don't, you may lose your.
And I guess the next question would be, though, are journals great for fiction books or nonfiction books, or does it not matter? What kind of information or reflections are you going to capture in these from these books? I could see a nonfiction book where you learned something about yourself. You want in a fiction book, maybe a quote. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think in terms of what you're going to retain, yeah, and again, this is just from me who
Right.
hasn't used it regularly. I don't see it purposeful as a fiction book helper, other than like you said, maybe a passage or something that stands. I think if you're looking to get information on something, I think it makes more sense for nonfiction strictly by
Right.
itself because you're already learning. Um, it's just helping you hopefully retain it better.
Right.
But I mean, yeah,
We just did the show on book kits, right?
right,
A small little journal might be something interesting, a small little notebook that might be interesting to go into that book kit, especially if you're doing nonfiction books, so that you're encouraging them not just to write in the book, maybe write in the journal as well. Another idea, guys, if you remember that show we did on the book kit, it might
I
be
like
something.
that. That's an interesting little, yeah.
So, do you think a reading journal can change the way you read if you decide you're going to use the journal, or what do you think?
I mean, it's kind of like two entities. I think I
Mhm.
don't know if the journal will change what I read or whatever. But I guess if I realize it's easier, and again, this would be if I'm notating. If I realize certain books are easier to notate,
Right,
then that might affect my specific titles
right.
and genres. But I think generally, and again, coming from one who doesn't use it regularly, I mean, I say that I like the idea. The idea is good, but I think generally, yeah, my reading choices will probably stick to what I'm reading right now anyway.
Right,
This would just be an added plus or minus depending on how it works
right,
afterwards.
right. I could see where a journal might be beneficial if they say that the best way to uh, retain that what you read is to teach it to somebody else.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Especially in a nonfiction. And I can see where a journal might come in handy then, if you want it, because I know that I tried to explain to somebody what I've just read, and most of the time I know what I mean, but I can't get the words out exactly. And maybe that journal might encapsulate it a little bit better for all of us by putting it in a place and putting it in your own words. I don't know. It sounds like it could be.
Yeah, that's a good thought actually. I mean, I think you got something there. Yeah.
Well, okay. Phew. Thank God for me. All right. So make sure you go check out nextchapterbookstore.shop because gently used books, comic books, all sorts of really great stuff there. Pick out one of your favorites. Let us know. Are you using a book journal? Are you actually doing a reading journal, or does that not work for you? I'm curious. I know you're curious too, Rob, right?
I am very curious, yes.
I thought so. I thought so. Well, guys, thanks for joining us today. We know you have a choice. You chose to spend it with us, and we are happy about that. Go out and give somebody an awesome day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.